Hello again, you sick, twisted weather freaks, and welcome to another fun-filled, action-packed, and intellectually stimulating edition of This Week in Weather. I'm your host and meteorologist DT from Weatherist.com, your commander of chaos, your captain of confusion, your colonel of catastrophe. Let's talk about This Week in Weather as of October 21, 2021, and this issue, as every recent edition has been, is the search for winter. So let's get right to it. We got a lot to talk about here. And first, this was the update from last Sunday for the latest edition of the 3-week newsletter. And I talked about here how the pattern change was underway. The mild pattern was coming to an end. There could be a possible coastal storm on October 23rd. And then a real blast of cold air the 23rd to the 27th, and then a potential for a significant coastal storm October 29th and 30th, and another one November 7th, 8th, and 9th. So, by the way, if you don't have the newsletter yet, you should get it. It's only $5 and it covers the next 3 weeks. It's probably the best. If you're a weather geek, it's the best weather information you can get out there. Now, most of the newsletter is focused usually on the Midwest and the Eastern United States for the most part. All right. Now, I want to show you how this all is developing here. Now, this was the extended European weekly from October 7th. You see the date up here in the top left, October 7th, valid October 28th. Look at the overall pattern. There's a little hint of weakness here in the Tennessee Valley and the bends and the height lines. You can see this big positive anomaly here. You look at this map, you see a big trough in Gulf Alaska, a big ridge across Canada. You go, nothing's going on. It's fairly mild, it's seasonal, it's not too hot, it's not too cold. It's Pacific air overrunning the U.S. What's the big deal? Storminess in the Gulf of Alaska, British Columbia, the Pacific Northwest, the Northern Rockies maybe, but it doesn't look very threatening. Well, first remember this is a 5-day map. That's the first thing to keep in mind. But more importantly, things change, and especially when you're going through a major change with the MJO. So that's why you have to be careful with this stuff. Now, this was the extended GFS, which, as you know, comes out during only the 0Z runs, and it comes out, from the day before. So right now, the extended GFS, which goes out to 35 days, is based upon the Wednesday morning run. After, late tonight, the Thursday morning runs will come out actually early Friday morning. So it takes 24 hours, about 18 hours for it to process. The point here is that this is from October 15th. Look on the upper left again. Notice the flow here. You have a little bit of a pink there, the positive anomaly in Canada, a big trough in Gulf Alaska, slamming storms in the British Columbia, the Canadian prairies, the Pacific Northwest, the Northern Rockies, but nothing too ominous looking for the East Coast, the Midwest, anywhere. It's just, bland Pacific air. It's not terrible. It's not a blowtorch. It's not early winter cold. It's just, nice weather. Okay, and that has been the case. But now look at the date here. This is for October 29th. Again, October 29th, all right? And then again, finally, hit November 1st, the GFS extended. This is now from October 15th, a couple days ago here. Actually, 5 or 6 days ago, right? But you can see the GFS extended was showing some sort of negative anomaly, moderate, not a big deal, in the Tennessee Valley, southeastern states with the blue color there. All right. Well, the reason why this has changed is because you can see here that this is the MJO. The one on the left is the Australians, the one on the right is the European. This is brand new stuff, just came in. And as you can see on both of these images, let me see if I can shrink this down at all. I don't know if I can. In any event, you can see here that both these models, you look on the Australian model in particular, they all have it, going back in September in phase 3 and 4, which is very mild, into October, which is 5 and 6, very mild. Then it cuts across the neutral circle. And as long as it's in the neutral circle, again, the Pacific pattern is dominating. There's nothing to cause the pattern to change. But now these models are taking the MJO into phase 1, maybe a little bit into phase 8, but phase 1. Here at the end of October, beginning of November. Now that's a totally different pattern. So this is what's causing it. Back on October 15th, look where the MJO was on the Australian image, here on the left-hand side. See where it was? Back in the neutral circle. Look where it was here October 15th, in the neutral circle. That's when these other models were showing us nothing. Now, that's not what's going on now. We can see it's going into phase 8 and phase 1. Now, why is that important? Here's the upper air pattern in October during La Nina when you have the MJOs in phase 1. This is La Nina phase 1 October. There's a monster big ass trough in the Midwest here. That's a strong, very strong negative anomaly here. And we have blocking in Canada, up in the northern, the Arctic regions as well. Now, the Arctic Oscillation, the NAO is actually in this case is neutral because you have a strong positive anomaly in northeast Canada, but it's negative over Greenland. So that actually counts as a neutral NAO, but the Arctic Oscillation is clearly negative here. And we have a bit of a west coast ridge as well. The Gulf of Alaska low is still there, but that's a big ass trough here over the Midwest. And that's what the pattern is going to be moving into. Already we can see this. This here is the super bomb, the Pacific storm. The image on the left-hand side, that's what's going on right now. A 955 millibars, very nice storm here in the Gulf of Alaska, headed for Vancouver. You can see in British Columbia. And the one on the right-hand side, this is for Sunday. And that's 942. Are you 941? Are you kidding me? No, that's a monster storm here for mid-October in British Columbia. And this is what the satellite picture looks like right now. This is the first storm. Look at this monster, huh? Here's the west coast. You can see that, the blue lines here. But look at this monster storm just wrapping up like a hurricane. Enormous North Pacific cyclone. The European agrees with it. That's the second system, 943 millibars, even on the European, 942. Very impressive system here Sunday afternoon, moving towards, it looks like, either Vancouver or western Washington state. Now, I hope this system weakens by the time it gets there, because this is a mean motor scooter and a bad go-getter. This is a big monster system if this is correct. Now, if we look at our teleconnections here, we don't see a lot of, impressive anything. The black line shows you where we were, so we were slightly negative. Now you look at different models, we're slightly positive until the end of October, then we drop down towards kind of negative and neutral during the first week of November on all of those models. That's the Arctic Oscillation. Here's the NAO, also on the Atlantic side, same sort of thing. Coming up to slightly positive, and then it drops down to negative or neutral October 31 right through the first week of November. All right, so the Atlantic side is nothing great. Here's the Pacific side. Here's our PNA, our West Coast ridge. And right now it's positive. It then drops down towards neutral. Then it goes slightly positive. And then in October, and then it levels off to neutral again. So, nothing spectacular. And then here is the Eastern Pacific Oscillation. This is your Siberian Express. When this is negative, you get a cross-polar flow. But as you can see, it stays generally positive right through the first week of November. So maybe tending towards neutral a little bit during the first week. So even there, no great shakes. But the problem here in the pattern is the block. So this is the upper air map here as of today, October 21. So we can see the enormous trough here in the Gulf of Alaska developing that monster storm, which is ongoing right now. You can see that off the Pacific Northwest coast. Huge trough here, intense upper low. There's our block in northeastern, north central Canada above Hudson's Bay. Very powerful. Now again, this looks like, in my opinion, this counts as a western-based negative NAO. But if you look at Greenland, above the block, it's got upper level low over it. So that would technically make the NAO neutral, but it's not really. Now, here in eastern Canada, we have a 500 low over southeastern Canada, so that's a 50-50 low. Now you have two pieces of energy here. One, an upper low, a little short wave over Chicago. You can see the green L, that's our surface low. And then another piece of energy by James Bay. And these two pieces are going to phase or merge. And we can see that here. This is now for Saturday morning. We have look how fast this thing amplified. Look at that to this. Boom! Really, and again, all of this is because of the blocking pattern. This is a classic omega-shaped pattern for North America. Look at the overall configuration here. You see the black line, I drew it in there, classic omega configuration. And that causes the phasing of these two pieces of energy on Thursday, right now, to become this big system here for Saturday. And we get a storm off the New England coast, northeast coast, the big block up in central Canada, and the trough coming in, driving more systems in from the Gulf of Alaska all the way into California and Idaho and Nevada, bringing tremendous mountain snows and rains and high wind, of course, but they really need that precipitation there. This is a godsend for those areas, let me tell you. It's been a great pattern for those guys in October. Now, this is the surface map. for October 25. So what happens is another piece of energy comes out, and I'll get to that in a second here. There you go. So this is October 25. Another piece of energy comes eastward, and this causes this system here. This is the one for October 25. We get this formation of this low in Missouri. Look at the high north of the Great Lakes. If this was November 25 or December 25, there would be snowstorm and blizzard warnings out. You have no idea, folks. This is I don't know if it means anything for the winter. I don't know that, but this is a nice system parked almost right over St. Louis. If this was, like I said, late November, this would be a much colder air mass, and this would be snow, and even probably in Chicago and Iowa, southern Michigan, places like that, maybe Pennsylvania, northern Pennsylvania, New York State, as the system moves east, right along the warm front, right across northern Virginia, Maryland. Then we have this other monster system coming into the Pacific Northwest. Look at the rain and the mountain snows in the areas where they need it with the drought. Just fabulous, fabulous weather for those guys, I must say. Now, the cold air, the problem is, if we go back to the 23rd here, this looks like a cold pattern, but the problem is that the flow is still zonal. So even though there's a lot of cold air underneath that high, you see the high here? Look at the temperatures. All the cold air is stuck along essentially Interstate 80. Now, south of that, it's fairly cold for this weekend in Virginia, and cool for October, and Pennsylvania, southern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, Kentucky. But all the cold air is really kept north of Interstate 80 because of the upper air pattern. Now, this is October 27th. This big trough here from the west finally begins to develop energy here over Nevada, and it comes eastward rapidly, going underneath the block. See, you can't go into the block. It's got to pass underneath it, and we can see that here. See, the block is still there. The block shifts to the Hudson's Bay, Canada. You can see that clearly, eastern Canada. And now we have our first low, which is off the coast on October 27th. This is the one for this weekend. It's still lingering off the Middle Atlantic coast. Going to bring some rain, maybe to coastal Virginia and New Jersey and New England. But then the big system coming in here, coming in from the Pacific Northwest, a major piece of energy, and it's forced to track underneath the block. And that's why these blocking patterns are so great if you're in the middle of winter. So here you are, October 26th, right? You can see the lows over Georgia, South Carolina. Look at the big ass high still over Montreal, Canada. Again, if this was the middle of winter, we'd be talking different. The red line shows southeast winds. You see that? So it's driving the moisture of the flow from the Atlantic Ocean, the Bahamas, all the way into Virginia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, western New York State, Toronto, on western Ontario, driving the moisture in there. Behind it, the rain hasn't started there yet, and there's our next system in Colorado. So this is a nice looking system here. This is for, again, early next week, Tuesday, October 26th. Now that low is lingering off the coast, but here comes the next system, the one here in Arkansas. That system in Arkansas, October 27th, is that one in the upper air. Okay? That's the one off the coast, off the Mid-Atlantic coast, and that's the one coming into Arkansas, which is this. See how that's developing? So the first system is off the coast. You have your rain in the lower Mid-Atlantic region. Okay, pretty windy as well, with the interaction between the low and the high. A lot of wind along the coast from, let's say, Cape Cod or Block Island or Martha's Vineyard all the way down to Hatteras. And then you have our next big system in Arkansas. It looks like a major rain event there, a very powerful piece of energy from the Pacific jet stream. Now what happens is October 29th, the systems combine. We have this massive trough. Look at the negative tilt. I do see the black line I drew in there. You get the circles. The circles is the upper low, centered in the middle of the Great Lakes. But you can see, I just so you can highlight it in case you can't see the thin black lines. But the thick black line is a negative tilt running from northwest to southeast. You see that? That's a negatively tilted monster upper level low. That's going to go boom on the East Coast in terms of rainfall and precipitation. The block is huge over Quebec and Baffin Island. And you have your ridge forming on the West Coast. Suddenly we have a ridge going there. Remember, a few maps earlier, we had this monster trough. Now we have a ridge. So the pattern is changing rapidly. And remember what we saw all the way back with the MJO. Go back to the MJO image here so you can see it. Go back to, there it is. That's what the MJO says was going to happen when it goes into phase 1 in late October, November. And now we're back to, we can see clearly, that's what we're looking at. That's the same map. Pretty much, folks, that's pretty much the same map. It's amazing how the MJO, when it's active, can just tell you what's going on ahead of time. I mean, it's just great. So you normally look at this and go, come on, DT, it's 192 hours out. Who knows? When the MJO is locking into this sort of stuff, it's likely to happen. Now you have this system, October 29th, a big surface low in South Carolina, another one in the Great Lakes. Look at the howling southeast winds coming in from the high in New Brunswick all the way down to Hatteras, with southeast winds 20 to 40 miles an hour on the coast, driving the moisture inland to the Appalachians, into Pennsylvania, New York, central and northern West Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia, Ohio. Then you have your big coastal storm down in South Carolina. Now behind it, look at the winds for the high in Kansas, driving the cold air southward. And sure enough, we see that even, this is October 31. Happy freaking Halloween, folks, because if this is right, no one's going out trick-or-treating on the East Coast, if this is right. Sorry, not happening. Make your alternate plans now. Monster block here in Quebec, Canada. Really quite powerful. And then you see the negatively tilted trough. The upper low, which was in Wisconsin, is now over Kentucky. See how it's dropped southward? Call it back. You can see it here. See, it was in Wisconsin. Now look what happens. It drops. So by October 31, it's in downtown eastern Kentucky, maybe Blacksburg, maybe Knoxville, something like that. And you can see it's negatively tilted, and there's more energy here. Another system north of Montana, another one in California, coming in underneath the block. This block is big. It's a big freaking deal. And look at this system here. Again, this is now the update, October 30th. There's October 29th. As October 30th. Now maybe for the Mid-Atlantic, this will clear out, and for the Ohio Valley, for October 31, Halloween won't be that bad. But New England, and a lot of this is timing. I'm hoping that this clears out October 31. But if it does, it's going to be a cold Halloween and really windy. Look at these winds. Are you kidding me? These winds, 50 miles an hour or greater from New Jersey, Atlantic City, up into Nova Scotia. Look at these howling winds driving the moisture up into the New England. Is this flooding rains? Look at this stuff. I'm impressed. I got to tell you, I am impressed. And look behind it. Look at these howling winds behind this thing, bringing in the cold air. So you wanted cold air? Really? You wanted cold air? Look at this. Holy crap! October 31. This is Halloween Day. Again, if the rain is over, it's going to be windy and it's going to be cold. So I'm just letting you know. Look at the rainfall. This is the European, taking us out to October 30th. A lot of rain here, and this is the GFS. Now we go beyond this, what happens? Well, this is the extended European from October 18th. A couple days ago. The new one will be out tonight, tomorrow morning. You can see we have a ridge on the west coast and a trough here right over the Mississippi River Valley, right along the Mississippi, and the big block here in northern Canada. So that's a fairly cold map, not severely cold, but it's interesting looking. It's got promise. And then look at this map for November 6th. Now this is an enormous block here. The model goes bonkers with the blocking. This is a negative NAO, a negative Arctic oscillation, and a very distinct trough here in the Ohio Valley. This has the potential for some sort of eastern U.S. low here around November 7th or 8th or November 6th, something like that. So there is that feature as well. Finally, let's take a look at the La Nina, because everyone's talking about La Nina. This is what it looks like right now as of October 20th. You can see the cold water is quite pronounced. -2, -3 degrees centigrade. It's quite deep. It's quite large. So La Nina is underway. We can clearly see that. The Australians are showing a weak La Nina at briefly reaching moderate around November. In November and in December, and then the second half of the winter, it rapidly weakens it. It's completely over by February. It really weakens in January. That's what it's showing here. Now, the American climate model, the CFS, is a piece of crap. It always has been, always will be. It is much, much stronger. It's got -2 centigrade here. That's ridiculous. No other model has that. I think the NASA model does, but most models don't. And then it weakens rapidly. Look what happens in February, March, and April. It weakens it second half of the winter. But the CFS is so bad that the CPC has to run a modified version of it. So when they adjust for the bias, it's -1.5. When you have to modify your own model because it's so bad, that's not good. This just isn't good. And you can see the difference here. This is the December projections here. Now here you have 7 climate models. 1, 2, 3. 7 climate models. And you can see the top one on the left-hand side, the Australian model BOM, Canadian, European, Japanese, French, NOAA, CFS, and the UCMET. Notice here that the letter Y shows you the CFS model. Notice in December, it's much colder than any other model. Now what that does is that throws off the mean. The bottom where the X is, that's the mean of all these models. If you did not have the NOAA model that extreme, you would not have the mean showing what it's showing. So the NOAA model is so extreme it throws the entire mean off. That's December. And if we go to, this is a January, again, much colder than any of the model. It's dramatically different. I mean, it's way off. It's not even close. Now, is it possible the CFS is going to be correct and all these other models, climate models, are going to be wrong? Yeah, it's possible, but I'm not going to go that way in my forecasting. I mean, I'll wait and see. I'll leave it open as a possibility. But quite frankly, right now, given all the data that I'm seeing here, I got to tell you that the CFS model is bullshit. It's not even close to being right. And then this is March, same sort of thing. This is February, excuse me. You can see now all the models are weakening, even the NOAA model weakening it, but it's still way off from everything else. Anyway, that's the discussion. Hopefully this was educational. Let's take a look what happens going into Halloween. It looks pretty busy on the East Coast. This is meteorologist DT from Weather Risk. I will see you over on the Facebook page and on the Twitter page.